everyone. Welcome to the Bristol 24/7 Queer Catch-Up. My name is Kit and my pronouns are they, them and theirs.
My name is Lowie and my pronouns are also they, them and theirs.
We're going to be diving headfirst into some of the biggest queer stories of the week, but first, here's the rundown. The US state of Arkansas has voted to ban gender-affirming healthcare for trans youth. The bill prohibits doctors from providing puberty blockers, hormone treatment, or surgery to minors, and allows private insurers to refuse to cover gender-affirming treatment to trans people of any age. Although the bill was vetoed by the state's governor, the veto was overturned by the state Senate. Both Keir Starmer and Boris Johnson have been widely criticised for visiting the notoriously homophobic Jesus House Church in London. Both have claimed that their separate visits were only to the COVID vaccine centre and not the church itself, and that they didn't know about the church's reputation before their visits. In Scotland, the anti-LGBT+ political party, the Scottish Family Party, faced backlash for projecting transphobic propaganda onto the streets of Perth. Perthshire Pride expressed their dismay at the image, which reads, "Stop confusing our children," alongside pink and blue stick figures, and tweeted their support for the city's trans and non-binary community. The UK government has announced it will cut the application fee for a gender recognition certificate from £140 down to around £5 from next month. LGBT organisations have welcomed the move, although most agree with Stonewall's statement that none of these changes are a substitute for meaningful reform to the Gender Recognition Act. That's the rundown. You're up to date. So, hello there, Lowie. How are we doing today?
Oh, not too bad. I'm really glad the sun is out. Like, honestly, these little things, they just make my world. Yeah, no, just really, really good considering the state of the world. How are you?
Yeah, pretty much the same. I think the light coming back has actually made a massive difference to my mood and to how just I'm feeling about everything. It really has made like a huge, huge difference. And I think that's been the thing for a lot of people. But yeah, considering everything that's going on, I've been feeling pretty reasonably bouncy, but it kind of in the way of like, everything's fine on like a micro level, but when we look out, like, you know, everything's fine in this small little bubble, and then everything else is beyond messed up, which I recognise is a really privileged position to take. But, you know, considering everything that's going on, doing reasonably well. You know, it's been a pretty heavy... I mean,
lifetime.
we kind of mentioned, like, when we were recording, you know, 2 weeks ago, we sort of said, oh, you know, what's going to happen with this whole this whole police crime and sentencing bill, you know, what's going to happen with that, you know, there's been... And then since then, it's just been like that bit in Anchorman where it's been like that bit in Anchorman where it's just like, boy, that escalated quickly. That got out of hand really fast. Just in the way that, you know, the government and the policing have been responding to things that have been going on just with, you know, excessive force and things, and that's a whole lot of not great.
Yeah, totally. And so, because I do a lot of just like the general reporting at Bristol 24/7, it has been like a lot of the week. So, like, for context, we record this a week before it goes out. And so there's still another protest planned for Saturday at this point. But yeah, just like acknowledging that it's happening. We know it exists, like it's taking up a lot of our brain space. But we know that people are fighting and we're fighting. And although we know it's happening, yeah, we're not going to focus massively on that this podcast episode, just because we sort of spoke about it and we're like, well, we want to bring a bit of joy to people's lives. So although we acknowledge that all this stuff is happening and it's terrifying, and we stand with everyone that's making their voice heard. We're not probably going to focus on it massively this episode, just because we want to bring everyone like a bit of escapism.
Yeah, and also, I mean, it's about what we're bringing to people, but also thinking about, our own sort of mental health. It's taken up a huge amount of both of our, brain space this week. I think particularly for Lowie, because Lowie's been reporting on so much of it. And, adding sort of more talk to the scenario is difficult for us. And then also, following today, I'm going to be going back over what we're recording today and listening to it and listening to it and listening to it for the purposes of editing. And I think for the benefit of both of our well-being in terms of being kind to ourselves.
We know it's happening, but we're going to touch on some other things this episode instead.
Yeah. And as Lowie said, we stand with those who are making their voice heard. Like, we want to make our position on this very, very clear. We're here in solidarity, and so we're going to try and keep it reasonably light. That being said, the first story we're going to go into is still quite heavy.
We touched on it last week. We mentioned that we knew it was happening, but we didn't know many of the details on it. And we didn't want to speak about the situation without kind of knowing the full details. But since that episode went out, I've written an article about it. And it's a Bristol Uni Feminist Society has been accused of transphobia. And although it's a bit of a grim story, there are lots of people standing up to this transphobia, and hopefully there'll be a good outcome of it. But I'm obviously following it as it progresses. But basically, Women Talk Back Society didn't allow some trans students at the university to enter a event that they were hosting, and they've also been accused of other transphobia. And then the student union has taken action against that and is kind of definitely on the side of trans students. And there's this kind of ongoing debate of Women Talk Back versus the student union and other pro-trans, which sounds like a weird phrase to say, people at the university. So a bit of a heavy one, but one that hopefully will have a good outcome in the end. Following it as it goes, but it'd be really good to have a chat about it, I think, in a bit more detail.
Yeah, so trying to sort of understand this and compile the evidence on it. And the thing that concerns me is how much the president of this society, who was made to step down by Bristol SU, which, that's a good thing that she was sort of held to account. Rather than sort of taking this as a growth opportunity, she seems to really be doubling down on her views, on her, very transphobic and very outdated views of, gender and sex. She was saying, and she's taking legal action against the University of Bristol. And, she's saying, people have the right to single-sex spaces. And the thing that always gets me about this, about anything where people are like, single-sex spaces, is when you say that and use that as a reason to exclude trans people, particularly trans women, what you're doing is reducing the definition of women down to, you're basically viewing women as walking vaginas, which, who else does that? Misogynists do that. And then claiming that that's your feminism is horrendous. And the thing about it is it was during an event where they were talking about, I should probably flash up a brief sort of content note on this, content warning for non-detailed descriptions of assault and rape and things, because that's just what they were talking about, if I'm correct.
Yeah, boundaries.
Yeah.
It was talking about boundaries and, the effect that men, quote-unquote men, have on women in that respect.
And this is the thing. Trans women are victims of boundaries being crossed. It is just frustrating because So much of what I love about Bristol is standing up and saying, like, we're a very free city, we're a very free space for expression, we're a free and safe space. And that's what a lot of the culture from people sort of tends to be. And then you get, you know, one of the most renowned unis in the country, societies that are coming out and posting these views, which I just don't want people to turn around and think this is how Bristolians think. It's not. It's almost embarrassing.
Yeah, and like I think it's probably important to know, like, we're not here just like attacking a society or attacking an individual. I think it's more just comes from a place of frustration, is that we work so hard, and clearly Bristol Uni is improving, and like at least the SU is very much like standing up for queer and trans students, and it's just frustrating to have this kind of like microcosm that represents this very closed-minded idea of feminism and like outdated view of feminism, even though it was never correct to begin with. And I think it's frustrating to have to report on stuff like this, because I originally wrote this article with kind of a more detailed look at the difference between sex and gender, but I wasn't able to post that longer version because of how lengthy it became. So there were people that were scanning this article, I imagine. Well, this is the impression I get. They were scanning the article when they were reading it and very much were like, well, transgender women are men. And it's like, well, no, actually, if you read the article in detail, or you like read some extra things that would like expand your knowledge on this, you probably wouldn't come to that conclusion. And it's just frustrating to have to put those sort of articles into the world and then see the backlash and then think, not only am I a trans person having to deal with this backlash, just like seeing it in my workday, think of all the other trans people. And it's important to report on this stuff because it's happening, and we can't just report on all the good stuff all the time. But it's really hard to think, oh, I'm gonna see this like this view of this individual kind of like repeated again and again and again in their Facebook comments and in the quote tweets. Yeah, it's just frustrating more than anything that people aren't, I guess, like, even as a journalist, I read, newspapers, I read information that I don't necessarily agree with to make sure that I can empathise with all these different thought processes and keep my mind open and not just go like, oh, I'm just going to read The Guardian and Pink News and be done with it. And like, why can't others do that? It's just frustrating. Yeah,
and especially at university. I mean, I always really consider uni and universities as a space where you open your mind and you explore different things, and having this sort of space where it's closing people's understanding, and at a time where suddenly your worldview is expanding, and to have this sort of influence is, scary and dangerous. I think, Bristol SU seem to have really done the right thing on this one and said, no, not okay, not happening. The leader was, sort of asked to step down, has been sort of banned from holding any committee positions in SU societies for 2 years.
And it's good to see Bristol SU standing up to them. I hope that the Bristol Uni do the same thing. They haven't released a statement as far as I'm aware yet. But it's without sitting there and just attacking this organisation, society, it's just very hard to live in 2021. We've just, at time of recording, just had Trans Day visibility, and it's just incredibly frustrating to not only have to fight for like rights and for healthcare, joy in a society that just doesn't want it for us, but to also have to fight that within universities and within a city like Bristol, where we know transphobia still exists, but it's where people are openly queer. It's just so frustrating and so exhausting. Like, surely universities and feminist groups are where we shouldn't have to fight to be seen.
This is the thing. It's exhausting. This is the thing we come back and back and back to, and I think it's something that cisgender people or even people who aren't queer full stop maybe don't understand quite how just the way your body just sinks every time you just see a headline like, oh God, what's happened in Arkansas recently?
About the trans healthcare?
Yep.
Yeah.
It's just exhausting. And we come back and back and back to this. And...
yeah, and like we say that as like, I'm like a white, neurotypical, non-disabled individual, and I have that sinking feeling, you know, when people talk about, like, you know, mental health and queerness specifically, but like I don't have all those other times where, like, obviously my heart sinks on like an empathetic level, but not in the same way as it's part of me. And like, so it must be just doubly, triply, quadruply exhausting to have all those moments where people won't listen to you and your, like, the people that share your identity in so many intersecting ways. It just must be ridiculous.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you say, you know, about, like, neurotypical and things like that, you know, as an autistic person, I have seen people online basically saying, like, you're autistic, oh, that means you're not really non-binary. You just, what? Like, yeah, no, people
weird.
People are weird. I don't get neurotypicals. Like, I just don't get. I just.
You just don't get it. It's fine.
Yeah,
it's fine.
I just don't. You know, and like I say again, I'm also white. Like, I can't imagine how difficult it must be adding, you know, racial discrimination on top of that. Like, that's not something I understand. It's something I empathise with and try and, you know, stand with and ally with, but it's not something that I personally understand. So that must be just horrifying. And I'm trying to find a way of being, like,
positive.
Yeah, I'm trying to find a way of ending this positively, and it's just
I think, like, yeah, it's probably going to highlight all the spaces that aren't transphobic. Like, obviously, this is absolutely rubbish. Like, I'm not trying to gloss over that. This is really, really bad. But at least as Bristol SU standing up to it, there's so many inclusive societies I know as part of the SU. Like, there's so many spaces in Bristol that are inclusive, and I think, like, take care of yourself when you're when you're listening to us talk, when you're reading these articles. I think we get that heart-sinking feeling all the time as well, but remember that there are other... It might seem like it's few and far between, but I know I'm, like, susceptible to doom scrolling. I'm susceptible to, like, going on Pink News and just seeing all those rubbish stories and being like, oh God, is this our existence? And although it might seem few and far between, and although it can feel difficult when you've got, like, transphobic uni societies, there is inclusivity, there is joy, there is, like, little nuggets of it. It doesn't always have to be doom scrolling on Twitter. It's important to be aware of it, but it doesn't have to be that, and it doesn't have to be negative all the time, because there are people living their lives joyously despite all the hardship.
And the other thing I wanted to bring up, you know, for people who are sort of like, you know, who get stuck in doom scrolling, we all do it. Like, we all do it, and it's difficult, and it's not healthy, and, you know, we get stuck in these sort of doom scrolling spirals. But one thing to remember, if you're feeling really, like, beaten down by these people, if you can't find anything sort of else, this is going to sound really weird, but stick with me. Sometimes, and only sometimes, it's not a thing I would encourage as a whole way to live your life, but if you're really struggling, sometimes this does work. Sometimes spite kind of works. Like, think about the people that are beating you down and pushing you down, and think about how much it would wind those people up to see you living joyously. Like I say, that's not a healthy attitude to hold 100% of the time, and it's not one I do hold 100% of the time. Like, you know, live your life with beauty and openness and love. But if you are really, really struggling, think about it like, you know what? Those people want to see me beaten down, and I'm not going to let them. Sometimes that works. Like,
Yeah, just like living your life unashamedly.
and how
Just
much
being like your queer self. Like truly, yeah, like, and just being beautifully queer and just being like, I bet this is going to annoy some people. Genuinely, sometimes it's like, you've just got to like, I don't know, sometimes I'm like, you got to keep living to annoy those turfs. Like,
yeah, and this thing, actually, the event where Lowie and I first met, I remember one thing you said, Lowie, that I actually almost, I designed a thing for it and I almost put it on a print above my desk. You were saying about, it was, you know, about being an LGBTQ journalist. You were like, you know what, be obnoxiously queer. Like, be unashamed, like, be obnoxiously queer and be unashamedly, like, who you are. And that phrase, like, be obnoxiously queer, like, really stuck with me in a way that was, you know, really, really awesome. And also the other thing, which is possibly the best piece of advice I've ever been given, which is from Lowie, which is carry yourself with the confidence of a straight, white, cis, middle-class man. Like...
yeah. Oh, totally.
It's
things. The way to get through life. It shouldn't be, but it is. I literally just like go into meetings being like, imagine if I was like privately educated and like cis and straight and a man. Imagine. And just do that. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. That's the thing. So, you know, live your life. Don't let the bastards grind you down, in short.
Yes.
Really is the way to do things. So, we have a very special guest with us today. So, George, if you would like to just sort of introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about who you are and what it is you are doing.
Okay, so my name is George Harold Millman. I identify as he, him. And I'm here today because I'm a script writer. My partner and I created a TV drama format called Square, which we're about to shoot the pilot episode of, and we're going to screen at Watershed in November.
Awesome.
Oh, how exciting.
So can you tell us just a little bit about Square, you know, what Square is and why it is what Square is and why it's important, why it's different, and what it is you're sort of doing with it?
Sure, yeah. So Square is primarily a drama about activist life in Bristol. There's numerous different characters. It's about life and politics, essentially. There's numerous different characters of all ages, all backgrounds, some who are a bit more working class, some who are a bit more upper middle class. But I think what links them all is that they all want to do something good in the world. And of course, we all have a different understanding of what something good in the world means. And some of us might disagree with what another's idea of what something good actually means. And there are a lot of people who disagree in Square. There are a lot of people from different corners of society. We've got police officers, we've got radical left-wing activists, we've got students, we've got Vice-Chancellor of the university who's having to make some cutbacks. We've got all these things going on, but I think they're all relatively well-intentioned. And I think that makes us different to any other drama format, because I've never come across something like that on TV before.
And I think from what I've sort of seen, one of the things that you're really trying to do is have characters with sort of diversity of identity, including sort of a lot of queer identities, where that's just a part of them and not necessarily like, oh, they're queer and this is the storyline, because that is just, you know, inclusivity in that more sort of broad sense. Like, yeah, this
Exactly, yeah. I was thinking recently about the Bechdel Test, which is obviously, you know, it's passed if there's two named female characters who have a conversation with each other that isn't about men. I've actually got some issues with the Bechdel Test. I think it's too simplistic to determine whether something is a feminist piece of work, but for better or worse, that's the measure of it we have. But it's occurred to me that we really need something like that for LGBT storylines, because it's very rare that we see two LGBT characters talk to each other about anything that isn't related to their sexuality or gender identity. It actually occurred to me recently because there was this TV programme on quite recently. I won't say what it was called, but it received quite a lot of quite positive critical acclaim for its depiction of an LGBT issue. And I actually thought that that was a little bit overrated. Like, I appreciated that they were raising the issue and depicting it on television, but it was the issue itself that I thought was good about the drama, the fact they were tackling it. I didn't think that I had much of a connection with any of the characters. I thought they were all a bit cliched, all a bit similar to each other. I didn't think it was a very good depiction. And I think that we do need more different stories about LGBT characters, because in our first episode, we've got a few different things. We've got someone who's just very, very lonely and in love with his best friend who doesn't really pay him enough attention. We've got someone who's actually a boy who actually lives with his girlfriend but is having an affair with his male lecturer. And then we've got the lecturer himself, who has a lot of his own problems. I think all of these characters have some dark backgrounds and some quite intriguing stories, and they're all things that I've never seen dealt with on TV before, and that's important to me.
It kind of feels like, as queer people, we're so desperate for representation that we'll just take whatever we can get, or even like put our own sort of thoughts and storylines and opinions onto any queer character that exists.
Yeah, I think that's definitely true, and I think that a natural consequence of that is that the characters that end up being dealt with tend to be people who are in the more high social class part of that category, because it's the same with female representation on screen. Actually, we hear a lot of the time about how important it is to have strong women characters on television, and I agree with that, but we don't talk about the actual strong women characters who end up on television, because they're normally white, middle class, maybe struggle with relationships, but they're normally quite high up in their career. It's never a black working class single mother who lives in a tiny flat. And that's what we've got in Square as well. We've got a girl called Trixie, who she's partly written to be a representation of everything that the media hates, but we wanted to give her a really, really positive depiction. We want people to watch her and think, oh, I really want to be like that girl, because there aren't any characters like that, really, are there?
Oh, no. I think it's just so nice to have something where that is part of them, but it's not only them. It's so much more, and they have so much more story and life and dimension than just that.
Definitely, because I think we all know people like that in real life. We all know people who have so much energy and so much charisma and so much passion to them. And you think, why do I never see anyone like this on TV?
Yeah, totally hear that. And, like, so what's it been like to create this pilot episode? How does it feel to finally be about to shoot it?
A bit surreal. It does. I mean, just as an indication as to how much of my life this has taken up, me and my boyfriend, who I created with this with, were not together at the time that we formed it. So we did fall in love over doing this. So
That's
yeah,
incredible.
I know that just goes to show. It feels quite incredible. I'm so proud that it's come this far, because I don't think I've ever been this proud of anything I've created in my life. And it also feels quite nerve-wracking, because it feels that at this point it really is make or break for us. And in some ways, I feel a bit guilty saying this because it's been so awful for so many people, but in some ways the pandemic has actually worked out quite well for us. Because last year, when we were in lockdown, we'd already done a short promo video with the main 4 characters, so we'd cast them. But we thought to ourselves, with the world on pause, why don't we just really go at it and really make something happen with our project, contact people on the internet. It was so much easier to contact actors during the pandemic than it ever has been at any other point, because they were all sitting with nothing to do. That's been the one thing that's been easier than we thought it would be. Everything else has been substantially more difficult than we thought it would be, but the one thing that's been really easy is the casting. We've got 17 actors in this, including a relatively well-known children's TV presenter, and all of them fit their characters incredibly well, and I'm so excited about it. Also, it's quite unusual to be making a pilot episode like this, screening it publicly, crowdfunding it, making sure that everyone knows about it. Because a lot of the time these things are quite need to know. They're only really to be shown to production companies and whatever. And the reason we're doing it like this is that we've learned the hard way over the last 3 years how exceptionally difficult the TV industry is. Because the truth is that if you're not famous, no one actually cares how good your work is. The hard truth is that they market things that they know they can market, irrespective of how good it is. Which is why there are some things on TV that are by very well-known people that you just watch and you think, this is not that great. So the only way that we can really do this and make it happen and hopefully get commission for a full series is to launch a really strong grassroots campaign where everyone has seen our pilot episode so we can prove there is a market for this. Look how many people want this to happen. And I think that's definitely been proven to us by how much the actors are behind this. Like, there's one actor in our pilot who donated more money to the crowd fund than we're actually paying them in wages. Like, that is how much people want this to happen.
Yeah, and I think it's so great that you're also screening it at Watershed, because they're such champions of independence.
They are, yeah.
Yeah, and bringing that new talent forward.
It's really lucky to be doing this in Bristol, actually, because because there's such an arts scene here in Bristol, but also because we're, out of all the cities in the country, we're definitely in the top 2 in terms of standing up for things, like particularly in the last couple of weeks when we've seen all the protests about the new police bill and so on. It's made me think that Square's becoming even more relevant and even more topical. It's so important to get a drama out there about activist life, and I've never seen anything on TV like this before. I think we've really got a unique selling point.
And I think you're right about the whole thing about, names sell things and names market things, and, it is a shame, but I think, the approach you've taken to it is actually really quite clever in terms of, names market things and names sell, so we need to make Square a known name. So that,
exactly.
It will, so that, people will pick it up and buy it, and I really hope that does happen for you. I really do, because
thank you.
Like I say, I know Owen, your boyfriend and your co-writer in this, absolutely lovely person and really brilliant writer. So the thing that you guys have created together is a really, really awesome thing, and I wish you all the success in the world, because not only are you guys lovely people who deserve it, the world needs this. The world needs to see, authentic queer characters and, authentic characters across the board really doing their thing. And yeah, I just think it's a really awesome thing, and I'm really pleased that you guys are doing it. I think you've taken a very clever approach to marketing it.
Thank you so much. That's very kind. I know Owen's going to be so delighted that you said that about his writing as well. But yeah, I've always loved Owen's writing, even before I knew him that well, because we first met when he cast me in a short film in 2017, which was about 2 people who meet in a lift and fall in love. And as an actor, you do a lot of short films, like for students and so on, and a lot of the time you read the script and you think, what on earth was that about? because they try so hard to make something artsy and original, they forget to actually tell an interesting story. And as soon as I saw Owen's, I thought, this is an incredible story. Also, he's really dyslexic as well, so I think it's quite impressive that he's such a good writer with that. But I also think that helps him a bit, because he sees things in stories that other people don't. I think that's why we're a good team, because he's very, very visual. It's like he's got a cinema inside his head, so he can always see how things are going to look, and I'm not like that at all. I'm the sort of writer that's very particular about making things look really polished. I'm the sort of writer that's always very particular about grammar and punctuation and so on. So what tends to happen when we write is that Owen will come up with a really great idea and he'll say, George, this will really work. And then I'll sort of look through it and think, oh, maybe it'd be slightly better if this character said this a bit later or so on. And that's our working process.
That does seem like it works really, that it works really, really well sort of together as a team. You guys work sort of really well together as a team. And I mean, yeah, actually, I suppose the thing to do now would be like, could you tell me just a little bit more about yourself, really? I mean, you talked about the project and all the awesome stuff you do, but like, let's hear a little bit about, the person sort of creating it, the people sort of creating it,
Okay, so I'm 27 years old. I grew up in Bristol. I've got quite an activist background. I've been involved in political campaigns since I was 17, so good 10 years or so now. And I went to university in Colchester. I studied creative performance, and I really, really struggled with sort of living in that area. I didn't really get on with many people on my course, and I had quite a difficult time at uni, which links in with a lot of the things that are in Square, because there are a few people that are having a difficult time at uni there, although I never had an affair with a lecturer. I should just clarify that. But university did cause me a lot of mental health problems, and when I finished, I really struggled to really pursue many of my dreams. And I think in a lot of ways that's what made me bond with Owen, because he had so much energy and so much ambition when he first moved here. I just thought, I really want to help this guy make his stuff, and it gave my life a bit of purpose again. But yeah, I'm a performer as well. I've done a lot of different shows, done a few short films and so on, and I also write plays. So I've got a couple of plays coming out this year. There's a play that, assuming that it's safe to with COVID, of course, we're keeping COVID secure. I run a small company, it's called Common Flipside, which does various theatre and performance related things. I set that up with someone that I went to uni with, and I've got a couple of things coming out this year, such as I've got a show called A Weak and Feeble Woman, which we've just cast, which is about Queen Elizabeth I, and well, it's about modern characters, and but all of their relationships with each other are deliberately written to mimic the relationships that Queen Elizabeth I had with each other, had with people, which is why it's called A Weak and Feeble Woman, because, that's one of her famous quotes, although I have the body of a weak and feeble woman, I have the heart and the stomach of a king, which I really like that quote, and I find it really interesting, because at the time it probably seemed quite feminist. These days it would sound so anti-feminist, but I thought that was an interesting comparison of the way that attitudes have changed.
I mean, that sounds really, really awesome.
Yeah, it sounds fascinating. I'm so excited for that. Are you like just in the writing stages now, or?
No, I finished writing it a couple of years ago.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, we just cast it. It's taken me a while to get around to putting it on, because I was looking for the right director, because I thought, as a man writing about raw female sexuality, I really wanted a woman director, and I really wanted to find the right person, and eventually I did. And then as soon as I found the right person, the pandemic came along. So it's taken a while, but I think we are getting towards it now.
Nice.
Oh, that's so exciting.
I think that's actually a really nice place to sort of wrap up. Can you, just to sort of summarise, can you just tell people about, how they can support Square and the project that you're doing, the work you're doing? Like, where can people find you? How can they support your work?
Yeah. So our Twitter handle is at @square_TV drama. So yeah, you can always follow us there, and we talk about new things. We haven't updated it in a little while because it was started up as the crowdfund, but we'll be putting more information on that about what's going to be happening with the screening of it. We'll put up some pictures. It's being screened, assuming that it's safe to with COVID, on the 6th of November at Watershed. That's going to be in the morning. It's at 10 a.m, so bear in mind it is a morning showing. And beyond that, you know, just tweet about us, write about us on your blogs or on Facebook. Always happy to have a chat with anyone who wants to contact us, because we really want everyone to know about this. And after it's been screened, we're going to try to make sure that everyone's seen this. We're going to try and get a grassroots campaign going to make things happen with it, because I think so many people really want to see Squared. I don't think there's anyone in the world that Square won't relate to on some level, because, you know, it is being written by a couple of lefty guys, but it's not just about lefty politics. There's so much in it. It's about real people, I think. And I think that's the important thing when you're writing a story, is that you don't want just to talk about a thing. You want to talk about people. That's what tells a good story, I think.
So, George, thank you so much for coming on, and I seriously wish you all the best. Everyone, please go and support these guys and what they're doing, because it's a really, really awesome thing done by two really lovely people, and I wish you all the success in the world. Thank you so much for coming on and chatting to us today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
So, for the second half of this podcast, we're going to do something slightly different. As we sort of alluded to earlier, you know, we know that the protests are going on. There's something I've written up on Bristol24. Please go have a read. Basically talking about, drawing comparisons between the protests and the events of Stonewall, the events of the Stonewall Uprising that led to a massive sort of surge in queer rights and things, and that's probably what you're expecting us to talk about in detail now. I mean, the only thing I will say about it, and this is basically the thesis statement of the piece I wrote, you know, if you're a queer person who is speaking and feeling very negatively about the way the intense and sometimes violent actions of the protesters in Bristol right now who are fighting to make sure that people's voices continue to be heard, I urge you to think about the Stonewall Uprising and how very, very similar forms of protest led to so many of the fundamental rights that we have today. You know, you're expecting us to go really in detail about that article that I wrote, but that's actually not what we're going to do today, because it's taken up a lot of all of our headspace, and we want to talk about some of the good, lovely queer things that have been happening in the world recently, and things we're excited about, good things, happy things.
Yes.
We want to spread some love and joy, because frankly we're just tired.
And just tired out on all of it. Yes, yeah. So I think, we just want to bring some light and joy. I think when we started this podcast, we want to obviously tell stories as they are, but we want to really bring some queer joy into people's lives. We want to really have that balance. And I think this week, I mean, I'm always like, really, can more bad stuff happen? Apparently it can. But at this point, I think, for everyone's sake, I think we should just talk about some nice things going on. Like, acknowledge that it's rubbish, but also there is good, and we want to talk about that.
There's hope. There's hope and there's loveliness. One thing we're really excited about is Travis Alabanza's show Overflow is coming to the Bristol Old Vic.
Yes, we're so excited. So I saw the screening of this when I was at Bush Theatre, and it was incredible. I still can't stop thinking about it. It was amazing. In case you don't know who Travis is, what are you doing? Make sure you know who Travis is.
Yeah.
They are a theatre maker and a performer and an artist, and they created the amazing burgers that showed a few years ago, and Overflow is their new show. it focuses on club toilets and sort of the camaraderie and also the danger of them. And it's a solo show and it's got Reese Lyons in it. And it's just incredible. Like, I think you can probably hear it in my voice. Yeah. I'm just so excited to get the chance to talk about it again.
Yeah.
And I don't know if, Kit, you want to also tell everyone the big news.
Are we allowed to?
I don't know. I think we should.
So, big, exciting news we are only just able to talk about. We are going to be having Travis Alabanza themselves on this podcast as a guest.
Yes.
We're going to be having a big old chat to them about overflow, about all sorts of issues. Hugely exciting that we're going to get to chat to them, and
oh, it's so exciting. And like, Chan's such a wonderful person, and like, their art is so incredible, and like, we feel so privileged about it because we're as far as we know, and as far as we've been told, we're the only sort of like oppressed, quote unquote, people that they're talking to in the run up to Overflow coming to Bristol Fix. So yeah, it's massively exciting, and also just like really nice to be able to have a chat with someone so lovely. I mean, obviously every single guest that we've had has been incredible, but like Travis isn't an insubstantial name on the queer scene, and so to be able to like really in depth talk about their work, it's just going to be so exciting.
And someone who we really admire. Like, it will it? Actually, I'm trying to think. It will be the next episode, won't it?
Yeah. 2 weeks time.
2 weeks time.
Yeah.
So it will be the next episode of this podcast. We'll be chatting to them, and that's going to be awesome.
I mean, in case you can't tell, I think Kit's quite excited about it.
Yeah.
I'm so excited to have to try and keep our cool next time we record.
Oh, don't get me wrong. It's the kind of thing where during the interview we'll both be like,
yeah, I'm cool.
Oh, yeah, you know, we're cool, we're chill, we're professional. Yeah, this is really cool, but it's no big deal. Yeah, we're all professional. And then the second that interview ends, we're just going to be like, oh my God! So, yeah, awesomely exciting times. That's the big sort of joy in our lives right now. And Overflow is a really, really awesome show. And the fact that more people are going to be able to see it, you know, we're really glad that that you know, more people are going to be able to see it, and more people are going to be able to just see this awesome piece of theatre. Like, it's amazing.
Yes, amazing queer theatre with, like, you know, a trans actress and like performing authentically queer. Like an authentically queer storyline, and it's had such incredible success. Like, there was like thousands of people on the last screening of it at Bush Theatre, and like, I'm so excited for that to come out of London and come into Bristol theatres. Oh, it's just so exciting. I love theatre. I love Travis's work, and I'm just so excited.
Next little mini, we're doing little mini bite-sized positivity bits here, little positivity buzz.
Yeah, like little cookie size. Have a nice chunk of cookie.
Yeah, like those tubs of mini Oreos.
Oh,
Like, seriously, guys listening, you don't even want to know the depth of conversation Lowie and I have had about Oreos. Like, it's kind of nuts, but we both really love those. So, little piece of news, a piece of research that was done for Trans Day of Visibility, which at time of recording was 2 days ago. Basically, this piece of research done for LGBT plus young people's charity Just Like Us reveals that 84% of secondary school pupils say they would be supportive if a close friend came out as trans. A nice thing. It's good to know that positive attitudes are generally held among like young people. Like, you know, there's positivity. Although, interestingly, only 76% think the same would be true of a teacher if their pupil came out as trans. It's like only 76% of people, the way I'm reading that is only 76% of students think that their teachers would be supportive if a pupil came out as trans.
Interesting.
So, yeah, it's really, really good to hear that even as we're talking about, you know, like transphobia in like uni societies and things, that, you know, so the next generation of trans people that are coming out and coming up are doing so in an environment with peers that are generally supportive of them. That's a really cool thing. I mean, it's nice to know, you know.
Yeah, like it's like the kid's all right, you know. Yeah, as a queer person, I think all the queer people that came before me allowed me to have the life I do, and then like before that and before that and before that, and I don't think, you know, we can be the only queer people that think about the queer kids to come. And like creating a better world for them to live in. And the idea that like that could be true is that it blows my mind. Like I'm always sat here like, that can't be true, surely. Like that's, even if like, you know, it might be off in different areas and different and whatever, the idea that people could just accept a trans person is just beautiful. I just love that.
And yeah, thinking about the legacy we leave, like, you know, as trans people, you know, we're walking in the footsteps of amazing trans pioneers who came before us and leaving tracks to the next generation. And for me, that's a lot of my motivation for why I like to talk about these things and why I speak out about these things in the same way as I, you know, speak out about being autistic and about, you know, having ADHD and all of this stuff. You know, I always like think, oh, I want to be the trans person, or I want to be the autistic person or the person with ADHD that I needed when I was young.
Yes.
Like, I want to be that for someone else. And it seems like those sort of efforts from so many people, a lot of people, are working. And I hope that that means that things are going to, you know, continue to get better, and that the next people following us are going to stand up for what's needed. It is a really, really lovely thing to see.
Yes.
You know.
Yeah, and I hope it's a sign of better things to come.
And I mean, I don't know about you, Lowie, but I found on Trans Day of Visibility, seeing so much positivity around. I loved that, and that was just making me really, really happy. And you know, just seeing so many awesome trans people like being who they are and living as who they are, and it's a really, really awesome thing. And it's nice to have, you know, as you know, in my sort of very nerdy way, it's very nice to have these sort of things confirmed in numbers, you know. And again, that's why we're both looking forward to the census sort of things coming out.
Yes.
Also, right, while we're on the positivity buzz, sorry, I'm talking a lot, I'm aware. Today, on day of recording, it is Friday the 2nd of April, it is Autism Acceptance Day. So, yay for that. As an autistic person, that's a huge thing, and I think it's something we've acknowledged before. There's a lot of autistic LGBT plus people. There is, and I think it's one thing that it's worth mentioning that, you know, a lot of us have, we have our experiences as queer people invalidated because we're autistic. We have people who don't believe us. But it's awesome that there are so many, like, queer autistic people coming out and being like, yo, here I am. Like, and yeah, again, I really hope to be that for someone else, you know.
Yeah. I also want to bring up the fact that, fingers crossed, I'm cautiously hopeful that Bristol Pride will be happening on July 10th. I'm excited.
Yes. I am also very excited. So
I'm really, I'm so hopeful. I'm so hopeful that it might exist, like to have physical queer people, physical queers. I'm not a physical queer. I'm a queer that exists in a physical space, but no, I'm not a gym queer. But no, to have all the queers in a space would be so nice. I really hope it happens.
It's queerness in 3D.
3D queerness.
3D queerness. Yeah,
I mean, 4D. I mean, what if someone has really nice perfume on? Like, really nice, lush perfume.
I can promise you I will have really, really nice perfume
nice.
on.
Nice.
I will have really nice
4D care.
Yeah. So, do we know anything about, like, anyone who's booked for that yet? Like,
no, I literally just know a date, but I've asked Pride for the deets, and they are going to email me as soon as they have them.
Lovely.
So you can be sure that I'll be writing a story ASAP once that lands in my inbox.
Awesome. I mean, that would be the kind of thing that it would be really cool to have, like, Travis Alabanza at. I imagine they'd probably sort of do some awesome performance for that.
Yeah.
You know.
And, like, I'm hopeful that, I mean, we only know that the Pride Day is happening, but I'm hoping that, I mean, what I always I could enjoy quite a lot about Pride. I love the parade. That's all good. But I also love all the different events that go alongside it. I love the
dog show.
film nights and the comedy, and I really hope that those will happen as well.
Actually, I went to a couple of years back a Pride comedy night with my mum, actually, and we saw Jade Adams, who was amazing. Oh,
I love Jade Adams.
I have the most love for Jade Adams. Oh, who else is that? Oh, Susie Ruffle, who was brilliant. Zoe Lyons. That was it. Yeah, Zoe Lyons. And there were. Oh, I forget who else. Oh, there was another really amazing performer. He does like a lot of like music stuff. He was on one of the more recent episodes of series of Taskmaster, and I've forgotten his name, and that's really going to annoy me. You know what's going to happen? I'm actually going to look up his name because he's an amazing performer. I'm going to look up his name and I'm going to put like a little ding, like postscript in once I've looked this up later.
Nice.
Because I'm an editor and I can do that. Yeah, like the Pride comedy night was fully amazing. I had had the best time in it. But yeah, all the stuff sort of surrounding it and going around it is a really, really awesome thing. Yeah, and I really hope that does all happen. I mean, we're hoping by July that.
Again, cautiously hopeful.
Cautiously optimistic. I think really that's just the general vibe of life at the moment. So yeah, we wanted to just kind of drop a few little kind of bombs of queer positivity at you, just sort of round this out today. I know this episode's been a little bit different, but different is good. That's the lesson we learn as queer people over our lives. Different is good. Yeah, I hope you've enjoyed this slightly different format. We've just been, we want us to just bring a little bit of light into things. That's generally what we're about. But I think now it's time to wind down, people. It's time to sort of wrap this up. So we hope you've enjoyed this episode of the Bristol 24/7 Queer Catch Up. My name is Kit Millian-Ross.
And my name's Lowie Trevena.
And we hope to see you in a fortnight for a very exciting episode. And yeah, have an awesome time. Stay safe. We love you.